Hello everyone and welcome back to Unity of Command. This is the campaign scenario Race for Rostov from the Soviet campaign of the main game. This is, in my opinion, the best, the most fun, the most enjoyable scenario of this campaign. At the very least, it's the one that I enjoyed the most. It has some challenge, provides us with a decent challenge, but it's actually relatively easy, and it has fun and interesting mechanics that I will showcase to you. January the 1st, 1943. Retreating Axis units from the Caucasus are rushing to join the defenses of Army Group Don. Soviets mount an advance from the Stalingrad area, racing to shut the door on them at Rostov. Now, first of all, welcome to 1943. So, another year chalked off. And yeah, this is going to be the last year where we're going to see Axis offensives. So scenarios, standalone scenarios from the Axis side. And we are going to see a whole bunch of Soviet offensives. And as for this one, already at first glance, we don't outnumber the Axis forces that heavily. As you will see, both armies are relatively strong, so consist of relatively powerful units. And the only special action that we get, and the Germans get nothing, or the Axis get nothing, is a logistics upgrade per turn. We don't receive any reinforcements. The Axis forces do, quite a few units, actually. So let's take a look at this awesome map. Okay, so before anything else, this is the whole map. Let's take a look at the objective, and I deliberately used the singular here because there is only one, Rostov. Capturing Rostov will cut off large enemy forces still retreating from the south. And if we want to get a brilliant victory, we need to capture it by the end of turn 7. And this is actually not difficult. And what you may not see at first glance is that our forces are kind of broken up into, well, either 2 or 3 front sectors. I'd rather think these two are connected. The Don separates the front line here, and because of the supply situation, we're actually I'd say we should divide up our units into the northern group and the southern group, because the supply is very interesting. We have 3 supply sources, one in the extreme northeast with a range of 9 that provides relatively good supply, quite far ahead. We have one in the northwest with a range of 5, which is barely enough for anything. And we have one with a range of 4 in the east, but it's on the only road, so the only supply line on the whole map. And the supply line is once again very interesting. So it goes to the extreme south across the Manuk River, and then it goes north right next to Rostov, but not through the city, and where it keeps going northwards steadily. The Axis forces have, or the AI has has 2 supply sources. One off-road with a range of 5 that's only there to offer supply for these units here on the northern side of the Donets. If they are cut off, there is a bridge here. If they are cut off from the main supply route. And they also have their own supply source with a range of 4 on the road. Now, I think that the scenario designer intended that the upgrade should go to one of these off-road sources, but I actually keep upgrading the road supply network because I had a very specific strategy in mind, and I actually kept restarting the first turn until I got the result that I specifically wanted. And I'll tell you exactly what my strategy was. If you look at the map, you will immediately see that, first of all, the units on both sides seem to be quite decent. Of course, not all of the units are great, neither on our or on the opposing side. So we have a unit here with 1 step plus a flak gun, basically. But and of course we have an Italian and a Romanian unit which are known to be useless. But there are also some excellent units on the map, both on both sides. We have, for instance, um, some guards tank corps, and two of these actually have veteran level experience. We have a lot of tank divisions, and these are actually absolutely excellent. Some of them even have experience as well. We have one T-34 in the south, and on the opposing side we also have some interesting gadgets. So for instance, we have the Viking SS division. It's motorized and it has a veteran level experience, so this is an excellent unit. But the real asset of the Axis forces is this one, because we have a new tool, that new little toy that is being introduced on this map, and that is of course the Tiger tank, which is the best specialist step we have seen so far, with 12 attack, 8 defense, and a shift, a positive shift of +2 against armor. I'm not going to explain how shifts work. It's a bit complicated, but basically what you need to understand is that against armor, this unit receives a huge extra bonus on top of these great stats. So it's good against infantry, because infantry is weak anyway, but when we want to throw our best units at it, then it gets an absolutely overwhelming advantage as well. This is attached to a standard Panzer division, which is of course one of the strongest units that the Germans have. So apart from the fact that it has no experience, this is an excellent unit, and nothing that we have equals this in any way. Other than that, they also field quite a few specialist steps. If you look around the infantry units here, they have great Panzer divisions. This one is veteran. This one has 5 steps, for instance. We have a strange little SS unit here called Gruppe Schult, which has a Sturmgeschütz, but only 2 steps. So anyway, it's a mishmash of forces. Numerically, they're not that great, but some of the units are excellent. And the way it works is that what I've seen when I looked at this map is that the Germans the AI doesn't have defense in depth. So what that means is that their forces on the front line are relatively formidable, but there is nothing really behind it. So I came up with a plan, and I wanted to achieve something on turn 1. I wanted to cut them off here in the south, exactly at this hex. I wanted to capture this hex on turn 1, so that all these units here would be out of supply. Obviously this green core Fermi is of no consequence, but everything else would immediately start to run dry, including the Tiger tank. I wanted to achieve it with relatively low casualties, and when I first managed to do that, after a few tries, the AI actually counterattacked and cut us off here at the Aksan River crossing, and then we basically lost the map. So at the same time, we must ensure that our supply route is not cut off. On this replay, you're going to see that I managed to do this, and that's how we win in the south without suffering really significant casualties. And then everything else is just a wash. And I always keep upgrading the road supply source. So once we connect everything up to the north, and then all the map will be in full supply. And in the north, I adopted a different strategy. Some of our units are half depleted, so I don't recommend using them. And my idea was to group them together where they remain in supply, and because, for instance, this unit is already out of it. And basically we will be on the defensive largely, but we are also going to dip in and out of supply and cut the enemy off from their supply. There is also a beach here, by the way, at Tatsinskaya. And the idea is that we will eventually clear out everything north of the Donetsk and the Don, but we will not advance beyond the rivers. We will not cross the rivers, and once the breakthrough from the south achieves, it arrives at the gates of Rostov, we will stream in from the north and win that way. So I'm going to try to minimize casualties here and maximize efficiency. And actually it worked out perfectly. It wasn't the first attempt, as I've said, it was like the third or fourth attempt. But this way it worked out great. So let's see how it went. Alright, so this unit is a bit depleted, so I opt to attack it immediately. And here comes the range upgrade. This is an excellent unit, a guard tankor with 7 steps. And I want to bring it back to supply. It's not going to happen immediately, but it's relatively easy to level up with it. So you need to only gain 10 kills, 10 KIA with it. So I thought I would first attack some relatively weaker German units with it, and then it would be a relatively unstoppable force, or at least some force to be reckoned with. Now we basically cut the Germans off from supply like this, so their supply for basically 4, 3, 2, 1 reaches until the Romanians, so all of their meaty units are already out of supply. And then we start our offensive in the south. I need to remove the Viking SS division, which is of course easier said than done. So we throw our best units at it, and eventually we succeed. And I needed to keep these 2 units active, so I couldn't waste them on that unit. And we are occupying the zones of control of this tank division as well. So we can do the following. Attack this unit. It has a 50% chance of retreating, I believe. And then we can cut the AI off at the bridge. As I've said, I've achieved this previously as well. So now the name of the game is keeping our supply line intact. And we do it, of course, by bunching up at the face of the AI. Now, I think this is pretty good, pretty awesome. So what this means is that currently everything is in supply. We can be easily cut off, I mean, these 2 units. But everything up until this line is safe. And these 4 AI units will start to run dry and will eventually evaporate. Alright, so a bit of reshuffling in the north, and you will note that we did not attack with like almost anything in the north, and we hand the control over to the AI. So these 4 units are out of supply, and everything in this, most everything in this bulge is also out of supply. Sorry, these 2 units are also out of supply, so they need to run. Unfortunately, these other units got resupplied that were half depleted, but whatever. The AI starts by receiving reinforcements, but this is a Sicherung unit, although it's a standard infantry unit. And so it's a bit more formidable. It's nothing really that's strong. And they also have some green units. This, for instance, this Luftwaffe unit here is well, it's green. It's holding the bridge. And interestingly, the city of Rostov, so our objective, is held by these alarm troops, which is also green. And so in itself, it's really not a threat at all. So the AI moves its best unit and decides to remove one of our already wounded infantry divisions or infantry unit with 5 steps. That's fine. We can do nothing about it, but I'd rather lose that unit than anything else, really. And it carries out some attack, and then something interesting happens. The AI decides to go on the offensive. I really found that strange, because I understand what it's doing. It's cutting us off from our strongest supply source here in the northeast. That's the one with the 9 range of 9. But by this move, it also doomed its own units to failure. All these units will remain in supply. None of these units will be able to attack next turn unless they retreat, which some of them won't be able to, and some of them won't anyway. So it's doomed a lot of its units to death, and I don't think it was simply worth it. So it was a pretty bad idea by the AI, but whatever. It retreats to create a secondary front line. I think it misunderstood my intentions, but because these units are just here to secure supply routes and not to, or rather cut them off from the enemy, for the enemy. They're not here to mount an offensive, but I think the AI got spooked that we would rush to Rostov and capture it with these paltry units. We were not going to do that, but now it's impossible to do so anyway. Yeah, and it's not even holding the river line, but we are not going to cross it. As I said, our plan is very clear. We do not want to cross the rivers. So as long as the forces from the south uh, are not yet there. So on our turn, a lot of our units are out of supply because, of course, the only source that in the north that we have is very weak and the supply doesn't reach her. But the key is anyway in the south. So in the north, the only objective is to remove as many German units as possible and to remain in supply. So let's remove some of the Romanians because that's always easy. And for some reason, this unit survives hilariously. Not anymore. And we know that these units won't be able to attack. We are 100% certain of that. So we decide to act in. And I think I made a mistake here. I should have moved this unit across, maybe, and attacked the Luftwaffe unit there on the other side. But I know what I was thinking. I was thinking that we might need these units to mop up operations here. I don't mind wasting another turn here. We have 7 turns altogether to get here, so it's not very far. So I was like, let's not cross the river here. Nothing is really building up on the other side, like nothing scary. So let's make sure we clear out our rear area. But I didn't want this unit to be resupplied, so let's remove it. And of course, we are not going to attack the enemy forces, at least not the 2 panzer divisions. But we want to make sure, yeah, only the panzer divisions will be scared, but we want to make sure that they also cannot cause any problems. Don't forget that they won't be able to attack, so we can use literally any unit to block them. And so this is what I came up with. This way, we are definitely making sure that our supply runs up until this point on the road, and no harm can come to it. These units won't be able to attack, and they'll gradually get weaker. All right. In the north, I have the brilliant idea to cut these off. I know I'm condemning these units, but there is also nothing threatening them because these units won't be able to attack, and this one is not that scary. I raised once again the supply range of the source on the road hex here, so it's now has a range of 6, which is great. And just to make sure, I occupied the other supply source with a relatively decent unit because I couldn't afford to lose that one as well. I was expecting to lose the northeastern one. And I reshuffle a bit so that the units can get back in supply, at least most of them. And yep, turn 2 for the AI starts by receiving another infantry unit, another zeroing unit, and tries to retreat, but to no avail. I don't know what it's doing with these units. Some of them stay here to block the supply, and the others try to retreat. So I didn't understand that. I don't think there was an overall concept for the AI to act on here. Anyway, on our turn 3, these 2 units are unfortunately unable to act, or at least to attack. These 2 units as well. Everything else is in supply, so we are great. And we start by removing this very weak unit. It works out obviously as intended. Raise our supply source range, and we remove now. I decide to remove the 2 panzer divisions so that we can advance. We don't have all day, so we need to do exactly this: cross the river and just remove these weak German divisions that are defending the back. Now this was a bit costly, but at the very least we suppressed all the steps of that unit, including the Tiger tank, so we could just remove it and assault. Since our supply is running along the road, we are definitely safe, so everything is fine and dandy. And I run this unit here so that I cannot capture the other supply source at the source itself. They cannot attack, so anything is going to be okay. This unit is going to fit the bill perfectly. And in the west, I'd attack this unit as long as it's weaker, and we got lucky because it retreats, and the only way it could retreat was towards the north. So first of all, it's not going to get resupplied, but just to make sure, I destroy it anyway. Yep. And yeah, since the enemy is much weakened, I decide to try to mop up before they could slip away, if any of them could slip away. But we also need to make sure that our units get resupplied. If they totally run out of supply, then they take a few turns till they get back to maximum strength, so that's not what we want. Alright, turn 3 for the AI. It's already looking very bleak. These units are totally out, and they won't be able to reach their own supply lines. So that's pretty certain. I mean, their supply reaches here, but we could very easily cut them off at the bridge again, and then it's basically just beyond the rivers. So that's not gonna happen. So these units are lost, are forfeit. This unit also couldn't resupply. The SS could, but it's not a very scary one. So basically they have one defense line here, and in the south they have practically nothing. So so the AI regroups this panzer unit for some reason and tries to create another front line. This is really pathetic in my opinion, so this is nothing. And they are holding the bridge here. This is also not very strong, but as I've said, we are not even going to attempt crossing the river. So so holding the bridge is going to work out for them, because and this Italian unit is also holding the bridge in the west. So basically they're maintaining the river line, and they try to create a front line here, if you could call it that, with these two units. And that one ran back to supply. I really like this move. It moved this Sicherung unit with one step to safeguard the bridge. It's not going to work out well for it. Unfortunately, it received another type of reinforcement. Another Tiger arrived, and it attached to this now entrenched alarm troops unit. In their next turn it's going to become active, and once it is, and then it's going to be very difficult to destroy. So actually we don't even try it at first, because we know that this could be very, very costly. So on our turn we start by raising the supply by 1. Now it's at 8, so it's excellent. Except for this one unit, and this one tank unit, everything else at least can attack. And so we will try to mop up in the north, east especially, and we need to advance in the south. We don't have all day as usual, so I no longer care for the supply source. I don't think they can reach it anyway, so let's just destroy whatever we can. And of course they barely can. They cannot really even defend themselves effectively, so this is working out perfectly. And and I made sure that the tank is in supply, so I made sure that everything is in supply that is running back. We remove the SS as well, not going to be a problem. And we run back to supply once again, but we hold the bridge anyway. We hold the bridge with units that are that have been supplied this turn, so that they still are perfectly fine the next turn. And everything else runs back to supply. That's the plan here. Not everything else moved, but not everything has moved here. So for instance, this unit still needs to go back, but I was contemplating what to do with it. This is our best unit in the north. So let's deal with the south first. Cross the river, and yes, nothing is going to stand against us. So that was a pretty bad idea to send these weak units in front of us. And I sent the cavalry here so that all the roads connect, and that the AI doesn't get any more reinforcements spawned here, because it kept kept spawning units in this location. So once you capture it, I mean, once it's your color, then they cannot then units cannot be spawned. And of course this poor pathetic one step is not going to stop us, and it didn't. We already crossed the bridge and we are standing next to the objective. This is turn 4 actually, but we cannot attack it this turn, and the next turn the Tiger will be active, the Tiger tanks will be active. Alright, after a bit of reshuffling, everything is going to be in supply, or resupplied rather. So turn 4 for the AI. It has literally 6 units on the map. These 2 are dead. These 2 are not very scary area, and they're running out of supply as well. And this is an Italian unit. So the only unit of any value is, interestingly, this green unit that is sitting in the victory axe with the Tiger tank attached to it. Don't underestimate that one. Now the AI can do nothing but retreat back into supply, and to try to defend the only objective that is on the map. And now it's time for us, obviously, to finally cross the river and get to the objective. We first come here, destroy the Italians, and capture the first supply source, the one that is in the northwest, off-road of the AI. Now the idea is to capture the other supply source, and I know exactly how I want to do it. I want to remove this tank formation here, and we succeed. And once we occupy the zone of control of these two units here, we could send anything across, and I say this unit has not moved yet, and it can reach there even after attacking. So let's attack with it. And this doesn't go very well, to put it mildly. But one step is sufficient, so we actually, on this turn, occupied all the AI, captured all the AI supply sources, so we're fine. The AI cannot get resupplied. And eventually it will run out and we can remove them. And of course, nothing is preventing us from streaming forwards from the north. We make a connection, and with this move, actually, the road is fully connected, believe it or not. So everything is in full supply except for this one hex. Everything is in supply on the map. All right, it's time to bunch up around the objective and to clear out whatever we can in the north. I decide to finally remove everything. I don't want to bother with these units anymore. So yeah, that works out. And at this moment, the AI has 2 infantry divisions on the map. I don't predict a bright future for it. So we connect everything, and now it's turn 5 for the AI. Its situation is totally hopeless. Interestingly, it removes our tank unit, and it does, so it manages to destroy that one step. And it regains the supply source running to the city, but obviously supply is checked at the beginning of the turn, so that means is that if we can recapture it on the next turn, which is going to be extremely easy, then this unit will not get resupplied, so it was totally futile. And yes, this is not going to be a problem. For fun, let's raise the range of that our supply source. And this unit, for some reason, is very resilient, but obviously eventually it will fall. It stands no chance. We overwhelmingly outnumber it. And we don't attack the victory hex, but what we do is we make sure that the AI cannot spawn units, so we capture all the areas that we can. I don't think it would be able to spawn units here, but just to make sure, I don't need these units for anything else anyway. Even in the southwest, I wouldn't be surprised if it could spawn here. But now, as you can see, only these 2 areas are in enemy hands, apart from the victory objective, of course. It didn't do anything on this turn. It couldn't attack. It couldn't move because we literally occupy all the neighboring hexes, and it couldn't spawn. I don't know if it received any reinforcements, but it couldn't spawn it anywhere. So even if it did, then that's out of the question. And now it's turn 7. Unfortunately, we don't have another turn to wait until this unit runs out of supply, and then we could just laugh at its face and as we remove it. We need to assault it, and this is still going to be difficult, even though this unit is actually green, believe it or not. This is getting costly. But finally, we destroy the Tiger, and then it's just a green unit with 3 suppressed steps, and obviously it's dead. And we capture it with a veteran guards tank corps that has 7 active steps. So practically our best unit here. That's it. I really think that this is a well thought out map, well designed map. And I think the key to victory is what I did on turn 1. So capture this bridge hex right here on the Manik River, and don't waste your units, and make sure that the AI cannot cut you off far in the back. And then you have practically won. They cannot really retreat. They cannot truly advance. And after that, you can just steamroll over them, overrun them from the south, and then there is nothing the AI can do. In the north, you can do something similar that I did. Maybe you could defend this area better, the Shur River better or something. It might be a good idea. I don't know about that, so it probably could have been done cleaner. But the idea is the same. Don't advance very far. Try to cut supply at the river sources, at the bridges, and remove anything that you can do favorably. And over time, you will just overwhelm the opposition there as well. Once the breakthrough has been achieved from the south, just link up, and this is what you're going to see at the end. So a huge conglomeration of your forces around the victory axe. I don't think I lost many steps or units here, so The casualties here on this map were extremely one-sided. And yes, yeah, that's this map. I think it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend you try it out. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next time as well. Bye bye.